Good morning, beautiful ladies. How are you? I hope you're all okay. Well, I'm back on the radar. I've been away for a month and I want to talk about burnout today. Burnout and overwhelm. As I just said, I've been gone for a month and I'm just climbing out of a bit of a pit, to be honest. I've been dealing with some serious personal shite that's been happening in my life over the past few months that's pretty much all but drowned me. I realised that I was starting to stumble. There was so much going on, most of which was outside of my control, so nothing I could do would have made a difference. And I wasn't coping with what felt like, I don't know, sitting around waiting for other people to make decisions about my and my husband's lives and our location and our finances. I was struggling to keep going mentally with the impact of having trusted professional people to do their jobs and take care of things we'd paid them to do, who actually weren't competent or capable of doing them. The impact on us of their inability to do their jobs properly was literally catastrophic to our lives in logistical terms, in practical terms, and in emotional terms. We were left in major crisis in several different directions with no power to resolve anything. We simply had to wait and hang on by the skin of our teeth while things got resolved to avoid going under completely. And the impact on our mental health has been significant. We're still both completely shattered, exhausted, angry, resentful, and bewildered, actually, about how many people could have got a few supposedly simple and straightforward things so terribly, terribly wrong. Trying to deal with all that stuff and write my book and do my recordings and advertise the writing mentoring side of my business. I just literally, I couldn't do it all. I was stumbling big time and heading at the speed of sound straight towards a brick wall. It's only my years of training and practice in the field of psychology that enabled me to recognize what was happening to me cognitively and deal with it. I realized that my thoughts were becoming fragmented and incoherent. Random, unwanted thoughts were crowding in, and I was catastrophizing about everything, imagining the worst was going to happen. And everything. I wasn't able to sleep properly, I couldn't concentrate, and I couldn't make sensible decisions within the context of where I found myself. I was spending most of my time trying not to scream or cry, and I reached a point I never want to reach again. I count myself incredibly lucky that I have a handful of friends who rallied around me too and literally kept me going every single day through that time in all of the ways that count. I'd have lost my sanity without them. My long experience with cognitive dysfunction and its causes allowed me to pull myself back from the brink of burnout before I hit that wall. And I knew I needed to drop some of the commitments I could control and take better care of myself cognitively and physically. Something had to give. There's only one of me, and some stuff just had to go on the back burner, like my work. I had to stop working for a while until certain elements of personal catastrophe got resolved. I had to get my sleeping back on track, which I'm still working on. And the thing about that is that insomnia and disrupted sleep, it's not always easy to resolve. Even for a sleep therapist like me, the process is easy, but it takes time to get back into the swing of things. And I actually had to commit to making it better, my sleep, and apply myself to making that happen in much the same ways as I've always asked my clients to do. It's a process, and I had to follow a protocol, and that required energy. And so did mindfulness around hydration and exercise and good nutrition. I struggled with all of it because my mind was scrambled, virtually dismantled, actually, through the stress of what I was dealing with. The fact is that my brain had been chemically changed by intensive levels of stress and the flood of stress hormones because of what I've gone through over the past few months. But I started getting myself back on track. I knew what to do, and I had to dig deep to do it and apply my knowledge of what was required to kind of, fix myself, I suppose. And that's a process too. I'm still coming right, but I'm at the end of the tunnel and facing forward again. My own awareness is what saved me from going under. But a lot of women are not that lucky. They don't understand what's happening to them, and they do actually hit the wall. And coming back from that, if they ever fully do, can take a long time. Some women who go through burnout or a long period of overwhelm find that they can't go back to the way things were before. Their brains are chemically changed by stress, and they find that something has to give. For some who've dealt with a lot of difficult stuff over a long period of time, they'll often find themselves making decisions about really important things like relationships, jobs, careers, finances, etc. Some of those decisions will be made under a massive amount of stress and overwhelm, and some of the choices women in burnout make do turn out to be the right ones, but a lot of women who feel pushed into making choices because they have to somehow take some of the pressure off find later that they weren't the right choices at all. I've said before that we often make decisions that feel right at the time but turn out to be the wrong ones later. That's a fairly normal happenstance. We all do things that we later regret, and we have to forgive ourselves for doing what feels right at any given time, because at any given time feels like the only thing we can do. Right? Yeah. But when big decisions are made under the influence of altered brain chemistry, when we're not thinking as straight as we think we are, the impact of that can be huge, lifelong in some cases. We've all heard the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's important for a woman who feels overwhelmed or who is in fact burnt out without knowing she is to get help from somewhere. If this is you, please, please, please talk to a counsellor before you make a potentially life-changing move under stress. I have talked to countless women over the years who've left marriages, careers, they've moved house across the country or to a different one, they've got a pet or they've got rid of one, they've blown huge money on silly things or they've refused to spend it on important ones, and a host of other actions that were done under terrible stress. They felt driven to change something, anything, without fully understanding the implications. As I say, some of those decisions turned out to be the right ones, but a great many weren't, and there was a lot of guilt, anger, shame, and resentment that followed that then had to be managed too. If you're not in a position to have counselling, please talk to someone who really gets you, a life or a business partner or a work colleague or a trusted friend, not one who breezes along and minimizes or trivializes your emotional crisis by saying, oh, you're a strong woman, you'll get through this, you'll be fine. I really don't blame you if you simply want to hit the people who say that to you while you're struggling to stay on top of everything. I wouldn't recommend that. Just as an aside, you just have to tell yourself that they simply don't know any better, and you have to turn away from them and concentrate on the people who will be there for you in ways that do matter. People who ask you what kind of support you need to get you through a personal crisis, who will listen and respond in ways that actually do help. They're the ones you need. And please don't be too disappointed if, like me, you have people who aren't there for you in ways that matter after you've been there to walk through their fires with them. There are different kinds of friends, so you just have to allow for different competencies and recognize that we all tend to judge by our own standards, and not everyone will be the same kind of friend to us that we've always been to them. It's when the chips are down for you that you'll realize that. It will add to the hurt and the bewilderment you're feeling, but you can't let it consume you. You've enough to be dealing with already. Shelve those people and go back to them later, or not, when you feel stronger and more ready to address the issues that might have come up for you in that. The message here today is that burnout and overwhelm are not just nuisance states that need to be managed, unquote. I will say that again. A woman experiencing burnout or severe overwhelm ignores it at her peril. If it isn't addressed, it does continue to get worse, and it does significantly alter the chemical balance within the brain. It can lead to irrational decisions, burnt bridges, being exploited or taken advantage of while she's in a vulnerable state, and compromised mental and physical health, some of which might end up being permanent. The signs of overwhelm or burnout are things like noticing that your focus is always on the difficult stuff. You're beyond exhausted emotionally, but you still can't sleep. You struggle to communicate what you feel or need. You stumble over your words, or you can't keep the angry tone out of your voice. You feel like you're making a mess of everything you say or do. You forget to say or do important things. You don't hear or remember the important stuff that other people tell you. Even the small problems feel like a crushing load on top of everything else, and you always want to cry but somehow never can. You spend your time just waiting for the next bad thing to happen. You feel isolated, and people around the edges of your life don't seem to notice. You feel angry and resentful all the time. Everything that does or doesn't happen feels like a personal injury. If any of that sounds familiar to you, you might be teetering on the edge of overwhelm or burnout. And none of this can be written off to a simple case of stress. These symptoms represent a critical state, a critical mental state of overwhelm. When burnout happens, it's an actual chemical reaction in your brain, and it is just like hitting a wall. I'm a decent person. I didn't deserve to go through what I have. I'm still dealing with some of it. Compensation claims, ongoing exhaustion, markedly reduced levels of tolerance for people behaving badly, and other overhangs that I understand and that I'm working to put right. If you're experiencing overwhelm or burnout, or even teetering on the edge of either, it's okay to take a step back and reduce your load, whichever way you can, for as little or for as long as it takes. You're not Superwoman. Well, you are actually, but even Superwoman needs a nap and a recharge now and again in order to maintain her stupendous level of awesome. And you are awesome, but you owe it to yourself to stay that way, for yourself. You have to be in a good mental and physical state yourself to be who you want to be to anyone else. It has to start with you, and taking the stress off yourself that prevents you from being the person you want and deserve to be. And don't make any apology to anyone about stepping back to take care of your own needs. If you don't put your own needs first, you'll never be able to expect anyone else to. And I have a saying that goes a bit beyond what's the worst that can happen if I do or don't do X, Y, Z. What I say is, will anyone die? If the decision you need to make about taking time out to recover from overwhelm or burnout, that's the benchmark. Nobody will die. I didn't put a podcast out in the entire month of August. Nobody died. I didn't get my previous novel from raw to very well done on the original deadline. Nobody died. I still haven't finished the first of the 3 parts in the last Teapot Cottage novel, so I've sailed past that deadline too. Nobody has died, and nobody will. I'm behind on a payment plan for something important. Nobody has died, nobody will, and the plan has been rearranged. A delay to your plans is just that. Better a delay than a total derail, which is what can happen in a woman's life when she's doing too much and ignoring the signs that she's not coping as well as she usually would with what life throws at her. I don't regret bailing on August on my business. I did it for my mental health. I might have lost a few followers, but nobody will die because of that. I may have lost a little traction business-wise, and I might have to work hard to get that back, but I can do it. Keeping perspective on what's achievable and what has to take a back seat is what enables me to be what I want to be to my readers, to my listeners, and my writers. Gorgeous women who are all balancing heavy loads, all fighting fires of one kind or another, and all struggling to be heard. I hear you, and I'm back with the feathers fluffed up, but I'm exactly like you. I sometimes get overloaded, and I know you'll understand that taking time out was the right course of action for me, and it may be for you too. We're just human and vulnerable in different ways, and it's important that we build one another up and not judge when someone has the guts to say, I'm not coping. Self-care is an important positive step when dealing with overwhelm or burnout. Stepping off the hamster wheel for a while is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. Please send me a personal message if you need support to recover from burnout or overwhelm. You can email me through my website at www.anniecookWriter.com, and I can put you in touch with some great people that I know personally and can recommend, who can offer you the help you need, a little bit of guidance. Please don't suffer alone, or worse, pretend it's not happening. You're a good person too, and you deserve better than that too. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.